All right. If you haven't figured it out by now, you will. We're going to talk about how most candy. Know what houses to hit. That's when I was a kid. You knew what houses to hit. Some of them you didn't even go there because they're just going to give you one little stick, and some of them give you a whole handful. Or they just hold the bag open and say, go ahead and just help yourself. And then they'd tell you who you were. I think before we get into the presentation here, I want to look at about 3 scriptures, if you will. 2 Chronicles 22. This is one of those verses that I've always thought was condemning and to a parent. But it says in verse 3, he also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. And it says this, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. I thought, well, what a condemnation for a parent to have to live with. Is you are the one who caused your child to do that. Amen. Now, we all know this. We're all grown up in here, all of us today. Except Micaiah, he's still growing up. We did some things that wasn't our parents' fault. Okay, so we're not going to blame everything a child does on the parent. But you understand the context here. Followed the house of Ahab, and his mother was his counselor. It didn't mean that mama just was bad. No, she sat down and counseled him. That's what counselor means. She counseled him how to do bad. And I just kind of shake my head when I go there. I said, why would I sit down and say, no, here's what you got to do. The bank closes at 4. I mean, when you stop to think about Jacob Amen. And Esau, and you think of mama said, here's what we're going to do. Amen. Bad stuff, man. Bad stuff. Back to Genesis 3 a minute. I've had people say, well, everybody has to learn to make their own choices. I agree. I did. Some of them were really bad. I made some really bad ones. And I'm not kidding you none. Just, you just got to be careful.
Pastor, is Halloween something that pretty much an American thing? It's not worldwide?
I'll get that to you in a little bit. Yeah, that's a good question, but I'll get that. We'll get that. Verse 22, Genesis 3 says, and the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take hold of the tree of life, eat and live forever. So something happened, that sin thing, man began to understand evil. And from that day on, the Tower of Babel, Lord had to flood the earth because of the evilness and the wickedness of men. And there's no way, my father-in-law, God bless his heart, he come from the 1920s and 30s when they saved everything that didn't matter what it was. They saved it. It was rotten. They still saved it because you never know when you might need it for stuffing. And he would take and put a piece of metal, usually aluminum or something. He would take that and put a piece of tin. He'd cut it out and put it over his windowsill. The windowsill was rotted right out. And he'd take and fill it up with putty and put it in there. And I'd say, Dad, what are you doing? I'm fixing it. I said, no, you're not. If you fix it, you take out the old stuff and you put in the new. You don't. Well, this will hold. I said, for how long? Now you've wasted all your time and energy in something that's going to have to be tore out and done over. Amen. Okay? And so what I'm trying to tell you is that something that's wicked, you can't paint it a different color and it's okay. Right. All right, so Luke 6. We'll look at this and then we'll get into our lesson here. Luke 6. Verse 45. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And in contrast, okay, and an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. And then here's the combined thought. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So your mouth tells on you. Tells something about you. And wickedness comes, as we know, from the heart. So sometimes when people just say, well, I was just having a little fun. No, that's more than a little fun. You had other intentions. That wasn't supposed to happen that way, but that's all right. As I'm going to tell you to start with, there's no way, because I wouldn't have had the time to do a detailed study of this. There is on the internet, you have to be careful, but there's on the internet some sites that will give you a lot of information on the beginning of Halloween and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to cover just a tad bit of it here just to help you with it. As a kid, I come up, nobody ever mentioned any of this to me. I didn't know any of it. We went trick-or-treating. I never even thought it was bad. But again, I didn't equate some of the stuff with what the Bible says is wicked and what's evil. So, and if somebody doesn't guide you, his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. If somebody doesn't help you do the right thing, then you don't know what's right. And so, as I look back, the church did a haunted house. You took part in all that. We went on hay rides and, put Limburger cheese in a girl's hair. And on Saturday night, that always makes for fun, doesn't it, Kim? I mean, that length of hair you got there, washing all that Limburger cheese out of it would have. And the girls got mad. But can you imagine that? That was because we lost the contest. That's why we did it. But anyways, why it should not be celebrated by Christians. We're going to take a look at that. And I suggest that people should quit making excuses for it and understand its real purpose. People say, that's just a bunch of kid stuff. That don't mean anything. You need to do a little reading. You really do. A lot that goes on in America has a history you probably don't want to know about. Halloween is the evening of October the 31st, the eve of what's called All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day, or All Hallowed Eve. It is a Roman Catholic Church celebration. Period. Okay? Now, the Halloween part, as far as what comes on that eve, is been transferred into it. You understand that most of our holidays, Christmas the same, Easter the same, most of our holidays are more than what you see. Amen. And they've Christianized them to some extent. You have one holiday in America that's truly a Christian holiday. It's called Thanksgiving, and it's the one day that's skipped and missed by everybody, except for the 4-day weekend. And stop, think about it. We'll talk more about this, but trick or treat. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to paint your porch. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to push your outhouse over. That's a spoiled brat. That's somebody who didn't get their way. That's what the guy does, with a gun in his hand. Give me what I want or I'm going to shoot you. And then he shoots you after he gets what he wants. That's the thought behind the whole process. So people are forced into giving you a treat so that you won't trick them, but that doesn't mean you don't go around and take soap and wipe on their windows anyways, or wax, or or you take something and spray the side of their house with words that nobody wants to read. Or you throw eggs on their house or on their car, and that will damage the paint. And why is that? Well, it's Halloween, So now we've come to this point in our history where we have what's called Devil's Night. And that's supposed to permit It's kind of like our government right now saying, well, you know, some of these people who are rioting, turning cars over and burning them, you know, they're just expressing their opinion. What? No, they're not. That's called wicked.
Amen.
So a lot of things have come a long ways, and we've kind of patted them a little bit, make them think they're a little bit better, but they still are what they are. I mean, a rotten apple's still a rotten apple. Can't fix it. Halloween was not so much accepted in colonial America because of its emphasis on witches, death, and so on. However, it was accepted in Maryland. Could you guess why it was accepted in Maryland? I'll tell you in a minute. If you can't figure that out, you ought to know that. Why is it called Maryland? The name alone should tell you. All Saints' Day is a Roman Catholic day that's spent supposedly to honor all known and unknown saints. It's one of those things to remember the saints, but keep in mind that everyone who's listening to me or reading these lines is saved as a saint. See, the Catholic Church makes saints and then there's you. But the Bible says you're a saint. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, what the Bible teaches about saints, they don't teach. And they make you think that they've canonized somebody, that now they're a saint. If they were saved, they were a saint anyways. And the Catholic Church couldn't make a saint if it tried. Amen. You do know that Mardi Gras is also a religious holiday. Amen. Huh? Promoted by the Catholic Church. It's a day of doing all the wickedness and immorality and filthiness that you want to do, and you get forgiven for that. And I would not stand in this pulpit, even in this audience of grown-up people, and tell you what goes on at Mardi Gras. If you've never been there, probably don't. Okay? Just tell you right off right now, it's not anything you want to be around nor near.
I just wondered your opinion on Christians that go down there to witness their...
Well, brother, some people can do it. And I'm not against a bunch of guys used to go from PBI every Mardi Gras and pass out tracts and preach on the street. Okay, it's all right. I'm just saying you don't want to go there just to see the party. That's what you don't want to do. And if I was going there to preach, I'd go there and preach and get out as soon as I got out. I wouldn't stick around town for a drink of lime beer or whatever. Paul reminds us to keep one another in remembrance, not in a religious sense of celebration. And we're not even going to look at those. You can look at them later. Paul tells us to pray one for another and then remember the brethren, remember them in prison. We're supposed to remember the brethren. We're supposed to remember the saints. It doesn't have anything to do with the religious all saints, day. Okay, if you stop to think about it for a while, Halloween is nothing more than a celebration of death and evil. Hollywood has seen to the fact that you view witches as good and wicked. The Bible never makes a witch anything but evil. As a matter of fact, Exodus 22:18, the Lord said, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Don't you know that makes them happy? Hence the Salem witch burnings in 1692 to 1693. Unknown to many is the fact that such burnings took place all over this world. Europe burned a lot of people, witches. Now you got to understand that a lot of this terminology was brought about by the Catholic Church, and they determined whether a person was a witch or not. And sometimes it was a person who had mental illness. Not everybody that was burned at the stake as a witch was a witch. But once you've been declared to be such by such and such a church, you're just it. Okay, nothing you can do to save yourself from it. So you have to be careful when hear people say, "Well, the Puritans burned it." Yeah, okay, and the Puritans were as bad as the Catholics. Do a little reading. All right. Okay, and Mr. Calvin wasn't a prince among men. He'd burn you at the stake if you didn't agree with him. So much for that, huh? Many other of these programs we view and still do. I'm going to give you some programs. I should have said that in the beginning there. And think nothing of it, that Hollywood's lying to you. Now, this is just a short list. I went through a list of programs about witches. And probably one of these I used to watch as a kid, and I never thought anything about it. I laughed at it. It was ha ha ha, twinkle the nose, and all that kind of stuff. Never thought anything about it. I don't know if you know, but Darren, the guy that played the husband part, spent most of his time drunk. They said he would come into the set, he couldn't even hardly stand up. Now that's the people that produce the funny stuff that we laugh at and think is funny, and they, at the same time, they're feeding you a lie. I mean, I'll give it to you here in a minute, but just think about it. They had a baby girl, did they not? And what was she? She was a witch. Hang on. I'll show it to you. There you go. Sometimes you think you did marry a witch. Smile, folks. Now that is just a very small list. I mean, you see the dates there? Some of those dates are 10 years apart. They're just a very small list. I never even heard of some of them they listed. I never even heard of the program, never heard of the movie, never heard of anything. I didn't even know it existed. I mean, I didn't know anything about the Witches of Eastwick and the Witches of, what's the other one there? Sabrina the Teenage Witch I'd heard about. Witches of East End, I never heard of that stuff. Why? Well, I don't watch that stuff. Some stations ran 31 days of vampires and witches and everything to honor a holiday that's coming at the end of the month. So some people in America are spending 31 days watching all this ungodly, wicked vampires, blood-sucking. They don't have a clue. It's going to happen. I can't tell you when, but it's going to happen. All right. But duck down this list here and look at this Bewitched. And what was the movie that followed it about 4 years later? What's the name of it? Some say it to me. You know what that was, right? That was Satan having intercourse with a woman and produced a baby with an upside-down cross in the cradle. It was a virgin birth, supposedly, of a satanic child. That's your witch stuff for you. That's your Halloween stuff for you. That's the devil stuff for you. Well, it was a big movie when it came out in '68. I was in the Air Force. I remember that thing came out, man. Everybody ran down to the theater to see it. Most of them had no clue in the world what it was about. They just thought it was a sex movie. I'm not kidding you.
The Omen was about the same time.
Yeah.
And that was about birth of a child.
Yeah.
666.
If you check those movies, all of them trying to produce that virgin birth, and they can't do it. Only one person could give you a virgin birth, that's God. Right. But to them, it wouldn't matter whether it's virgin or not, because it'd be a baby conceived of Satan or the Antichrist or however it was going on. And that's all connected to this Halloween. Now, as I said, I don't know what was there, 6, 12, was there 12 of them there, 11 of them, I don't know, I didn't count them. Movies, programs, and that's just about that much of a list. Trick-or-treating is something that goes back as far as the 16th century, brother. It's part of the Scottish and Celtic or Irish celebration of the harvest time called Samhain, I think is how they pronounce that. It's believed to be celebrated as far back as the 9th century. So it's not a new thing. Now, you got to understand that the celebration of Halloween back in the 9th century and even in the 16th century would not look anything like what you see here in America. But the roots of it would still be the same. Okay, it was evil, it was satanic worship, and most of them had sacrifices. Somebody died. Most of it had to do with a goat man. A goat that was half man and half goat. And you thought all those were just fairy tales. You ever read about a satyr in the Bible? See, people have laughed at the Bible for years, but the Bible's already been given the answers before their grandmother had her diaper changed, been given the answers, but who knows the Bible anymore? Not anybody in America. As far as the average American, they don't even know where the one is that they got. Yeah, Grandma gave me one when I was 6, but I don't know what I did with it. There's probably some Christians like that too. So the big thing was bonfires, sacrifices. When I was a kid, people used to do that. Used to light up a bonfire, roast hot dogs. You know, they weren't doing it for the reason they were doing it, but the symbolism was there. So is it any wonder we find Halloween associated with all sorts of ungodliness and death? I'm going to list a few of the things that become more and more prevalent over the years that people sometimes, they will call themselves saints, take part in. Okay? Sometimes people take part in this, call themselves a saint. Now, I'm not fussing at anybody. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling you how, if I can use the word ignorant, not stupid, just ignorant, we've just become ignorant to truth. And that's why some people get offended when they go to a church where the truth is preached. They go, wow, good, I can't believe he's that. It's the truth, man.
When you're speaking on the bonfires there, I was witnessing to a guy a few years back, and he told me that he was out racing a band, and they had a big bonfire, and I don't know if it was October or not, but he said they considered it, the police considered the investigation as murder. The man fell in the fire and burned that in Oklahoma County.
Yeah, that wasn't too far from my house. See, it goes on, you don't even know what's going on. So here's some things Halloween isn't known to promote, okay? We'll give you some stuff it is not known to promote. Life and happiness, but instead death and sadness. Doing good without reward, instead trick or treat. Jesus Christ, instead devils, witches, ghouls, and we'll talk about them in a minute. The Bible, instead witchcraft and potions. Heaven, instead hell and the grave. The church, instead haunted houses and funeral homes. So anything that that Halloween celebrates is totally 360 degrees away from what's Halloween or what's right. So there's no way you can't take, I've known Christians that take, churches that have taken Halloween, brought it into the church, and everybody dresses up like some saint of the past or something, but we still have all the trimmings of the Halloween. Well, what's the difference? You just had somebody dress up like George Whitefield, so what's the difference? A little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. I asked my wife, Mrs. Long, maybe you can help me here. I asked my wife, and you don't have to participate at this moment, but I asked my wife, I said, all right, hon, so how much is a little leaven? She went, well, whatever's required. I said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you what a little leaven was. I said, if you're making bread, how much leaven do you put in it? She said, well, 2 tablespoons or 2 teaspoons, she told me. I said, okay. I said, so what happens if you only put 1 in there? Well, then it won't rise, right? So what happens if you put 3? Well, then it's too much. So I said, we're back to the word, what's a little leaven? Can it be a measured amount? Yeah, if you want it to come out right. But if you don't do it, how much do you bring in before all of a sudden it's affected? Brother, there's too much there for me. I can't get all of it. And you know, when you talk like this and when you teach like this, you begin to think that people think you're against everything. I am against everything that's wrong,
Amen.
but I'm for everything that's right. How come you're not for what's right? How come you're always for what's wrong? I don't know. I guess there's an answer somewhere. Here's a list of things that represent this festive occasion called Halloween. It is often referred to as a holiday, but hardly fits the description of the word holiday, which means holy day. Now, it does in one sense because of its religious association to another church. But in the truest sense of a holy day, it is not a holy day by any means. It's a very unholy day. So here's some things. These are things that it enhances and fits. If you go on the internet and look up Halloween symbols, you got to try that. Just look up Halloween symbols. You'd be surprised what you see. Of the what?
Pelosi.
Oh, I know. I got her coming up in a minute. You won't recognize her, but it is her. So if you look at all that list right there, what is in that list it would brighten up your day? What in that list would encourage you to serve the Lord? What in that list would help you to be a better Christian? Well, nothing. There's not anything in there. And I could get into some detailed stuff with black cats if you wanted to have. I can get some detailed stuff about black cats. Why is a black cat a bad omen? Why, if a black cat walks under a ladder, is a bad sign? You say, well, no, we'll get your Bible out. I'll get you the answer. All the stuff's in there. It might not be verbatim as you think of it, and you may not see it, but you have to go and work around it, but it's there. I mean, if you stop to think about the colors that are used, orange, green, and black during this time of year, orange is supposed to be an exciting color. It's supposed to busy up your life. There's a lot of things, but it also has a bad contents to it, but nothing about black is. I know that's probably a racist statement, but I'm sorry. If you don't believe me, go to the internet, look up black. Go ahead. See what you come up with. See, the trouble with America is if something's the truth and it affects us, then we make it wrong to do. You can't say it, or you can't think it, or you can't have it. Why? Because we don't want that promoted. You don't want the truth promoted. Well, yeah, but I mean, not that way. Oh, okay. I mean, mummies and zombies. Why is it that people think it's cool to be a zombie? I don't understand a woman that would have that tattooed on her neck or on her arms or on her legs. I saw a girl the other day. We were with my wife, was shopping for something, and she went in the place there to get some stuff. And this girl come out, and she had tattoos from that part of her hand all the way up her arm. Of course, she had a short sleeve shirt on. And she didn't have small arms. She was a very well enhanced woman. And I couldn't see her legs because she's wearing long pants, which I'm glad I couldn't. But I said to my wife, I said, that woman just uglied herself. As far as I'm concerned, a woman with tattoos has done nothing but make herself ugly. She hasn't done anything. Tattoos don't enhance, it doesn't even enhance a man, but I guess it makes him a sailor. I'm not sure. They were the, you know, when you stop thinking about it, it was the people who come over here on ships that come across these African natives and these natives in South America who back in the 1400s and the 1300s were tattooing themselves. I mean, tattooing, Americans think, whoa, look what we've done. You haven't done anything. That's older than old.
Amen.
You just got stupid all of a sudden. Amen. And don't realize that medical science is telling you that all that ink's running around your body. Where it stops, nobody knows, and what's going to be the end result, nobody knows, but I think I've got an idea from reading the book of Revelation. But that's another story. All right. Ghosts are not portrayed in black, but they are a big part of the celebration of this unscriptural festivities. Another such entity is a ghoul. Now, I did not know the difference. I guess I understood the difference, but did not know the total difference. A ghoul is a devil, and it's a creature that lives in the graveyard, and he eats human flesh. So he's not a ghost. He's a ghoul. Now, I mean, isn't that something that you just want to promote for your children? Let's turn to Proverbs 15:9 a minute. Now, I'll tell you this, and as I tell you about all the other ones, you go ahead and do whatever you want, okay? I'm not telling you you can't trick or treat. I'm not telling you you can't. I'm just telling you what it's all about. I'm not telling you what to do. You better decide that between you and the Lord. But here, Proverbs 15, look at verse 9. The way of the wicked is an abomination unto the Lord, but he loveth him that followeth after righteousness. So the way of the wicked, the way of this world, John said the whole world lieth in wickedness in 1 John 5, I think it is. So the way of this world is an abomination to the Lord. Did you get that? The way of this world is an abomination to the Lord. What they practice and what they do is an abomination. Luke 16. Paul said, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? And the answer to that question is yes. A lot of people will hate you if you tell them the truth. And you'll be hated. I can assure you that I'm hated. All right? I don't even have to hear it. I just know that I'm hated because of what I stand for. But hey, if you stand for the truth, you're going to be hated somewhere along the line. You can't help it. Somebody's not going to like you. They didn't like Jesus. All right, Luke 16, look at verse 15. And he said unto them, ye are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your heart. For that which is highly esteemed among men is abomination in the sight of God. Good verse. That'll fit just about anything you want it to fit. But that which is an abomination to God, that which is highly esteemed by this world, and they uphold it, and it ought to tell you something. When the world promotes something and stands for it, you ought to know right now God doesn't. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, how strange it is that you can have 3 holidays right in a row like we do at this time of year, and Thanksgiving will never get in the market unless they're trying to sell a turkey to you. And it's not even about turkeys. As a matter of fact, it's most likely they didn't even have a turkey on the first Thanksgiving. They had a bald eagle. No. All right. Oh, here's the one that really people get a little upset when you talk about it because they've always enjoyed carving out the pumpkin. Okay, well, go ahead and carve one out if you want to. Enjoy it. It seems the origin of the jack-o'-lantern is from the Celtic tradition of carving out turnips. It should have been out, not our. Just like items, in other words, turnips or whatever they were, they carved them out before they started carving out pumpkins. Some think it came from Britain, where an unknown man was called a Jack. You didn't know his name, you just called him Jack. Like people, my wife would forget the name of the boy, she called them all George. I used to ask her, who was that boyfriend? George, I don't remember him. But anyways. So then they got to calling a night watchman because nobody knew who he was. They called him Jack-o'-lantern. Jack has a lantern. Supposedly that's where that kind of comes from. Celtics, pagans believed that the carved face in the pumpkin warded off evil spirits. So there you go. So it's more than just carving it out. There's a purpose to carve it out. If it won't scare the spirits away, it'll probably scare people away. And you might think that a little weird, but recently, this past year, they put a barn out there on the grounds at the county fair. Beautiful. They did a beautiful job. They restored this barn. They tore it apart piece by piece, restored it. It's a beautiful Ephesus. And if you look up in either corner or at the top of the barn, on either end, there's a cross cut into the wood. So somebody asked him, why'd you put that cross in there? He said, to keep the evil spirits out. So you see, a cross on a building doesn't always mean what it looks like it means. And you say, well, I don't carve a pumpkin out for that reason. Well, carve one out then. I didn't tell you you couldn't carve it out. I just tried to tell you what some of the meanings are. That's all I did. I'm not here this morning to tell you not to do it. I'm just here to tell you if you do it, here's what you're following. You got to make your own mind up. You can't do what everybody else is doing. We made some decisions years ago concerning our children and holidays, and we stuck by them and tell them when they grow up, if they want to celebrate it their way, that's okay, but this is the way we're doing it. Why? You have to make a decision somewhere along the line. You can't stay over here on the gray line. You've got to make it black or white. Somewhere along the line, you've got to make it white. Because children need guidance, and you surely don't want to be the lady that we read over there in 2 Chronicles, who was his counselor to do wickedly. You don't want to be that. And decisions they make after they leave home, even if they've been brought up right, decisions they make are their business. And everybody in this room, when I said that, agreed. Yes, I made some mistakes and did some dumb things that weren't my parents' fault. I've often thought about that a lot of times. My mother or my dad knew some of the things I did, and maybe they did, I didn't know it. We found out after we grew up, and parents know more than we thought they knew. Amen. I'm just saying is, everything that I do, I can't say, well, that was my mom's fault. No. That was my dad's fault. No. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, I can't think of anything too bad that I could blame on either one of them. Maybe my mother, because like most mothers, she was overprotective. You know, Dad says, just whoop the kid. She says, he didn't mean it. Don't you all look at me like that. I got out of a lot of trouble because of my mother. I loved her to death. But she had a way of making me look like I was the prince. I probably was the prince of evil. I'm just telling you, listen, I don't care who you are here today, you got some things in your past you're regretful of, and that's it. But it was a decision you made. Huh? Come on, shake your head, yes, okay. Yeah. It was a decision I made, and I might have even been counseled not to do it. Don't get mad at yourself. Just get mad at the devil, okay? So we have to learn, while we might not celebrate today from a pagan standpoint, there's nothing in its origin or nothing in it that promotes anything that is but wicked. In other words, you may not do what they did for the purpose they did it, but any participation in it, you've got to accept what it stands for. I mean, so far in a hymn book, I haven't seen a hymn about honoring Halloween. Have you ever stopped to realize that this is a season that witches, goblins, devils, and multitudes of movies that support all these evil things, which we find repugnant and ungodly, are put before us for a month or more? They started in September telling you what they're going to do in October for 31 days, and they're still telling you. I look at some of that stuff and I'm going, how could anybody sit and watch that? You know, grueling monsters with saliva running down their cheeks and long teeth. And what do you get out of that? I mean, what would you do if one leaned over your couch and bit you? Amen. Not one of these things in any way, shape, or form presents Jesus Christ, salvation, heaven, or godliness. Well, preacher, sometimes you just got to do something that's just not churchy. Okay. How about raking the garden? What does that have to do with watching a ghoul movie? Right. Something slobbering on the flesh of somebody who died. So let's go to Deuteronomy 18 a minute. Deuteronomy 18. And let's look at verse 9. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. There shall not be found among any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, oh, really, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. Some of those, couple of these things are interchangeable almost, but they're different. I'll comment on that. For all that do these things are an abomination to the Lord. How many? Anyone, anywhere along the line that practices any of those things is an abomination to the Lord? And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. So the Lord didn't even leave the people in the land because of what they did. The Lord drove them out so his people wouldn't be affected by it. And people say, well, you just live your life over here, I'll live mine over here, and I'll do my business. Yeah, but somehow or another, we still get affected by the fact of what you're doing. Amen. Now, you and I can't stop people from doing what they're doing, but you understand when the Lord put his people in the land, he drove out the stuff that he knew that if he left it in the land, they would follow it, which eventually, did they not? And anyways, you can read the rest of it if you want to, but I just want you to see that these things, and enchanter means to bewitch, to influence by charms. There's Nancy. She showed up on the screen. So, ladies, what is it you wear on your arm? Well, that's a bracelet, but what else do they call it? Charm. Charm bracelet. Say, how does that work? I don't know. I don't know what the name of that bracelet is now, but if you buy a piece to go on it, it's like $93 or something. I looked at them one time. I thought, I just want to see what they're doing. I looked at the price and I went, you're kidding me. Why, if you had one of those around the bracelet for everything you did, you'd have thousands of dollars invested in that. And it's a charm bracelet. Yeah, my husband gave me this one here. He's such a sweetheart. And my mom bought me this one here and that. Now everybody's going to go out here and say, preacher said you shouldn't wear a bracelet. Didn't say that. Didn't say that. I said, what do they call it? Isn't that what I asked? That's what I ask. Amen? And women, don't you love to be charmed? Come on, be honest. Sure. You don't want your husband to come home and tell you something bad. Babe, you look so nice tonight. Oh, thank you. What do you want? How about supper? Okay. Uh-oh, things are going to get rough there. Okay. An observer of times. I don't think that one's hard to figure out. An observer of times. Well, it could be. You're observing. Observer of times. Oh, I can't do that. I mean, that's during. Consulter of familiar spirits, the spirits of the dead asking for advice. So they consult, as the Witch of Endor did. You consult for information, advice. You say, I don't believe it. You don't have to. It's right there in the book. You don't have to believe it. It makes no difference when people say, you believe in that stuff? Right there. Yes, sir?
Is that what those palm readers are and all that too?
What do you think? Okay. And then a witch. Well, you couldn't really need to do much there. Usually it's associated with a woman, and I did not know this part here. It's also associated with Wicca, and I'll show you that in a minute. I mean, I knew that, but I didn't realize it was associated with the witch part. Wicca is a religion influenced by, listen to this, pre-Christian beliefs. How about that? Little mixture in here, huh? And practice of Western Europe, and affirms the existence of supernatural powers, such as what? Both male and female deities who are which is inherent, in nature, that emphasize ritual observance of seasonal and life cycles. So Wicca is a religion, and it has some pre-Christian ideas mixed in with it. So henceforth, we got necromancers in that list, and we have wizards in that list. Let me give you this information. A necromancer conjures up the spirits of the dead to tell the future or deliver a message. You say, how can they do that? I don't know, but it's in your book. You know what the trouble with the average Christian is? You don't give much credit to the devil. He's a pretty powerful being. The Lord said, where have you been? He says, from walking to and fro and up and down on the earth. Don't blame everything on the devil. Some of it's your own fault. But he sure can fool people, didn't he? He sure fooled your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. He told her a lie and she believed it. He'll say, well, you can't talk to the devil. Eve did. Eve did. Michael the archangel did. 2 or 3 people in the New Testament that did. And a wizard, normally thought of as a man, witch, but could be any person skilled in magic. Henceforth beware of what? Somebody said, oh, David Copperfield's all fake. No, he ain't. I'm sorry to tell you, he ain't fake. I'm sorry to tell you that he gets information from somewhere. I've heard him tell things on people that nobody knew. I've heard him tell women the color of their undergarments. And they'd say, he didn't know, because there ain't no, I never seen him before. You don't want to mess around with that magic stuff. And that's why there's a big, okay, thank you, Tony. That's why there's a big thing about Christian magicians that I really don't care for. Amen. It's magic. You're conjuring up something that's not real to fool people. All right, let me close this lesson with this thought. There's much more that we could chase down, but we don't have the time. So I just got the cutoff. My hope was just, oh, I asked him to do it, so, because I get involved in teaching and I forget what it is. It may well be as witches, wizards, and Wicca followers, but it's a day that ought to be avoided from all who call themselves saints. Here's some thoughts from the book. Have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather what? So don't stand for them, reprove them. And woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and but put dark for light and light for dark, that they put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Abstain from all appearance of evil. Unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them which are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, even their mind and conscience is defiled. And that's where we're at in America right now, right there. All these Hollywood actors and actors, people think they're so smart. They're just run over and used by the devil. That's all they are, and destroy people's lives. All right. Hope you got some help.